Start the music.
Too many songs about the fall. Then autumn came along the day we started taking Adderall.
I have a question for you. Would you hop in your car and drive to your childhood home to snap a pic of your brother standing in front of it if it was guaranteed to increase the authenticity of your emo band's debut self-titled album? Even if your answer is yes, you'd still be living in the shadow of Charmer, an emo band from Marquette, Michigan, formed May 2015. In the short time they've been together, Charmer has cemented themselves as a mainstay in the genre. Placed among acts like American Football and The Hotel Year, this album cover appears in my mind when I think of the cliche, emo albums with houses on the cover. As singer David Daigneault jokingly said, it feels good to be one of the guys.
I got plenty of friends. I can name 3 right off the bat. The gang's all here. Oh!
Today, I'm going to tell you the unabridged, unreleased story of Charmer, detail why they're doing it better than all the newer emo acts, and examine their sophomore album, Ivy. Charmer does it differently. As soon as you hit play on track 1 of their first LP, you're enveloped by an aura and mystery. You get the feeling of wanting to be a part of what they're doing, even though you've just discovered them. So naturally you want to know more about this awesome new band you discovered, but after mining the internet, you realize there's little information about them online. You begin to ask yourself questions like, do they purposely limit the information available about them online? You start to wonder why their social media accounts are bare. By saying less, Charmer enters your mind more, because you wonder about them. They leave you room to do that, letting that mystery grow within you. For me, that mystery had grown big enough, therefore I attempted to respectfully pull back the curtain. By fate or miracle, I was able to get in touch with their singer, David Daigneault.
Hey Dave, are you busy? Yeah, I'm fucking busy.
He disclosed exclusive information that I've been authorized to share with all of you. And now, with your permission, I present to you the story of Charmer. An important thing to know about Charmer is there have been 2 formations of the band, the one you know today and one you haven't heard of. You may not know this, but Charmer started as an accident. Sort of. Let's go back in time a few years. The month is April, the year is 2015. A man named Nick Erickson calls another man named David Daigneault to ask, "Hey man, do you have a band that can play this show with Hot Mulligan? My band can't play it anymore." David responds, "I don't have a band, but let me see what I can do." He quickly made a few phone calls, then like magic, David had a group of 3 guys to play the Hot Mulligan show.
Who the barnacles is
David Daigneault?
I believe you went to kindergarten with him, dear.
kindergarten, huh? Oh, yeah.
David Daigneault.
They played 2 shows together before the 3 guys David rounded up decided they had zero interest in continuing to write and play. But now there was a problem. David had a strong interest in continuing the band, but no one to play with. Therefore, David began searching for people with a serious interest in being in a band. This leads us into Charmer's first formation. Zack Riley was the first person that David asked, a fellow student in his advanced audio class at North Michigan University. Zack agreed to join, therefore becoming their new guitarist.
How live are you right now?
How am I live? Well, I had like 1 Red Bull. That's how alive.
Zack proceeded to ask his friend Jake Edwards, who was also attending NMU, to play drums, filling another spot in the roster. After Charmer's second show, a man named Neil Berg came up and introduced himself to David.
Good shit.
And David said, "Wait, aren't you the guy who sells me pizza?" It was an instant connection. Therefore, David asked him to come play guitar in Charmer shortly after.
Neil, what happened?
Dude, my pillow went flying off the fucking
Alright. Yeah, Neil.
The final member in their first lineup was named Jacob Kotler, David's roommate's stepbrother. Jacob had just graduated college in upstate New York, but came to Marquette after graduating. David and Jacob quickly hit it off, so David asked him to come play bass in Charmer. In May 2015, the lineup was finalized. From May 2015 to May 2016, they recorded and released their first 2 EPs, Best Worst Birthday Ever and Whateverville. But here's where things start to change. At the end of May 2016, David, Zack, and Jake Edwards graduated from NMU. This freed up the entire band to move to upstate New York, Jacob Kotler's home area. They played a ton of shows and worked on music during their time in New York, but ultimately the band's chemistry fizzled out due to creative differences. Therefore, David and Neil made the decision to move back to Marquette in December 2016. The rest of the band stayed, as it was obvious the current Charmer lineup wasn't going to work out.
We're going to make you as much money as you're going to make us.
Which is probably not a whole lot.
You remember that guy named Nick Erickson who called David to ask him if he had a band to play the Hot Mulligan show? In November 2016, before David and Neil moved back to Marquette, David reached out to Nick after coming to terms that the current Charmer lineup was falling apart. David asked if he'd be interested in playing drums on the album he had written, the album being LP1. Nick said yes, ushering in the second formation of Charmer.
Look who decided to show up.
Oh, what's up?
Big Dick Nick.
Once David and Neil got home to Marquette, they got to work on LP1 with their new drummer, Nick Erickson. The three boys began to flesh out the album in January 2017. They spent the next year and a half with no official bassist. The story of how Charmer got signed is equal parts inspiring and surprising. One day, Charmer received an email from a label called No Sleep Records asking if they'd be interested in a record deal. But at the time, Charmer only had 200 monthly Spotify listeners, therefore thought they were being catfished. But after emailing back and forth, they knew they were speaking with the real deal. Charmer signed with No Sleep in February 2017.
People have been saying that we're gonna get our song in the jukebox.
We are, dude. It's not gonna be Elvis's bathroom anymore. It's gonna be Charmer's.
Thanks to the support from their newfound label, they now had the means to record an album. Therefore, they reached out to a man named Jacob Ewald, who used to play in a band called Modern Baseball. This took place June 2017, shortly after Mobo announced their indefinite hiatus. That summer, Charmer drove a grueling 16 hours to Philadelphia to record the album.
No one's hit it yet, that's good.
Can we see a little hustle? Maybe a little hustle.
What a prize.
Yeah, for real.
They got it knocked out in just 4 days. But at the end, when vocals were being recorded, they hit a snag. David's voice blew out. Therefore, David had to go home, re-record the vocals, mix them himself, and try his best to match Jake's quality. They ended up coming out great, but David said it was a nerve-wracking process, taking several months of his time. In summer 2018, the fourth and final member, Zack was added to Charmer's lineup. He was a childhood friend to members of the band, making it an easy decision to add him on as their new bassist. Meanwhile, something was happening. Before Zack joined the band, Charmer had released their first LP, but being a small band with not a lot of press, it didn't garner a ton of attention. Therefore, Charmer figured it had hit its peak interest and wasn't going to receive much more consideration. They were wrong. Months after its release, it slowly began to pick up steam. The momentum was a result of it being shared in Facebook groups, small music blogs, subreddits, and organically via word of mouth. Within a year of releasing their first album, Charmer solidified themselves as a force to be reckoned with in emo. But it also placed a lot of eyes on them, eagerly awaiting their next move. In music, there's a term coined sophomore slump. It describes a band's second album that failed to live up to the expectations of the first. But Charmer evaded the sophomore slump on their newest record, Ivy, which we'll look at in a second. But first, we're going to see why Charmer is doing it better than the current emo acts. One word separates Charmer from the current crop of emo bands. That word is execution, from the way they structure their sound, communicate their thoughts, and market their band. Charmer's sound is unique, even in the world of emo. Their music feels like one consistent tidal wave of sorrow. This is because each instrument is given equal treatment, so one doesn't overshadow the other. Instead of feeling layered, it feels like each piece of the song is holding hands with one another in a straight line. You can hear every mathy riff, twinkle, and drum hit sitting nicely beside David's soft-spoken vocals. If you pay attention, you can pick out each part and listen to it individually, but you can also listen passively and let the emotions consume you.
So I'll bring my shoes up to your room, so your friends don't know I wear.
David's lyrics leave something to be desired, but that's not a criticism. His lyrics invoke a level of emotion to where you want to keep coming back to try to gain insight. But the more you study his words, the further you feel. It's hard to get them out of your mind because you never get that sense of closure and understanding. Because at their core, these are deeply personal narratives from David's life. It's clear he's made the choice to keep them ambiguous, perpetuating the mystery surrounding Charmer. This also carries over into their marketing, or lack thereof. It's not necessary for them to be all up in your face, Instagramming their lunch. Charmer's infrequent use and perceived disinterest towards social media communicate their identity better than any tweet ever could. When they do use their social media, it's used sparingly and efficiently, never giving away too many details, leaving you hungry.
What up, it's Bam Margera. The band Charmer is releasing their second LP album, Ivy, on April 3rd on No Sleep Records, and they're from Marquette, Michigan. Rock and roll.
Last Friday, No Sleep Records released Charmer's second album, Ivy. I have a deep love for their self-titled album, but Ivy blows it out of the water. Charmer wrote the smartest possible album a band in their position could. Instead of hoping their 20s will last forever and clinging to nostalgia, Charmer opts to talk about change and the importance of living for today. Topics they breathe fresh life into by tackling them with acceptance, coupled with realism. My favorite line on the album being, "Are you where you want to be, or are you frozen in your lease?" If I had to describe Ivy in one word, I'd use the word dynamic, especially when compared to their previous effort. Self-titled is a crisp take on tried and true emo traditions, but on Ivy, Charmer ventures out on their own in search of expansion. Dead Plants and Track and Field are their most accessible, catchiest pop songs to date. While tracks such as Wither and VCR 666 mark the darkest material they've released, hinting at a route they may take with future projects. On Ivy, we see Charmer improve as a unit, but we also see each member make strides with their respected instrument. Doom is the best example of this. Like always, Nick's drumming is tight and punchy, laying a foundation for Neil's intricate, skillfully played riffs littered throughout the album.
When Neil used to sleep at my house when we were younger, my mom would be like, "That Neil sure sneezes a lot."
David's vocals sound more confident than ever. His vocal range and progression from album to album is impressive. Zack consistently lays it down on bass, adding the extra oomph each track needs. You'll find yourself grooving along with every melody as they imprint upon your brain. Brett Romnez of The Movie Life and I Am the Avalanche is to thank for the lively production on Ivy. The shiny, bright feel Brett constructs elevates Charmer to the next level in the professional music world, but keeps them relatable by not polishing things too intensely to the point where they sound like a shell of who they were.
You guys take your band pretty seriously, I would assume?
Approaching their second album this way is intelligent, because it opens them up to a new market without alienating their original fan base, promoting growth without compromise. For years now, Charmer has been making brilliant, calculated moves that will secure them their own corner in the world of emo and the world of music as a whole. There's no doubt in my mind that Charmer will lead this next wave of emo. I also don't think Ivy is the best record they'll write. I believe the best is yet to come from our Michigan friends.
Dane Cook, pay-per-view, 20 minutes, let's go!
David Daigneault is one of my favorite band members I've ever spoken with. It's clear that he's a fundamentally honest and principled person with high integrity and strong moral compass. I can't imagine any of the other members would be any different. If you were looking for a band to root for, you found them. Thank you for watching.